Welcome back to the Seaboard Central, everyone. Today we're going to do a different video in that I need to adjust the bell sound settings on this 3016. And I thought it'd make it a good opportunity to show you the current DCC settings that I have in this Kato SD40-2. So without further ado, let's get started. So since this unit is in a consist, one of the first things I need to do before I make any DCC setting changes is to take out of the consist or kill the consist. You can see on my NCE controller, 3016 is indeed in a consist, and I know that the consist address for this particular consist is 122, and I'm going to go down here and hit clear, and it's going to ask me what consist number I want to kill. I'm going to kill 122, hit enter, and now if I dial the locomotive in, 3016, enter, now it's no longer in the consist. Now I've got the unit on a dedicated programming track, and since all of my locomotives have ESU loc sound decoders, and this one in particular has the newer V5 decoder, I use a loc programmer to make all of my adjustments. So for you Tsunami users, sorry, I cannot help you. Our TCS users, this is really just going to help people that use ESU decoders. Why I chose that, I mean, all of them are good, but I just use best just to stick with one brand. I like this one because I find that the drive hold allows me to really get good simulation on how you can make a model act more like a prototype locomotive. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just reading the current decoder settings that's on the unit, and it's going to come up on the screen once it does that. It only takes a few seconds. And I'll show you the current decoder settings, what I have in it, and how I can adjust that bell volume and bring that bell volume up. So here's the first page once it reads the decoder settings. And you see it's got the long address, the 3016 dialed in. I do not put a consist address here simply because I use the NCE controller for that. Activate functions in consist mode. Whenever any locomotive you have is in a consist, you will want things like a dynamic brake or your independent brake active for all the units, so they'll come on at the same time. You don't want things like a horn or bell or a headlight to be active because you want to control them individually. But here I have F5, F6, F7, and F8. With F5 being drive hold, F6 being the independent brake, F7 being the dynamic brake, and F8 just being on and off. The next page we're going to look at is brake settings. And when we get here, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. For brake functions, that's what I'm looking at. And these are my settings for all of my locomotives I found out that these give me the most realistic results when it comes to stopping the unit. So brake 1 is always 51 or 20%, brake 2 85 or 33.33%, brake 3 102 or 40%. And I keep a notebook where I have all these this information on each one of my locomotives where I write it down. Next one is driving characteristics. Now this I'll go to the top of the page here, and this is what I'm looking at: acceleration and deceleration. Now, for all my yard and local locomotives, or like second generation EMD, like this SD40-2, I want 25 seconds from stop to maximum speed. And to get that is 28, is equal to 28. That gives me this 25.09. This gives me what I believe is the most realistic results for this type of locomotive, getting that lag in startup and till you get to maximum speed. That number is key right there. Now, for all of my locomotives, in order for me to take advantage of using the brake on the proto throttle, or any controller for that matter, I max it out at 255. The next page we'll look at is the function outputs, and this is where you have your lights and your ditch lights, and you have to just look to see for example, what ditch lights are on. So this one, like auxiliary 1, auxiliary 2, those are ditch lights, and I have them set up to on this unit where they don't flash. Next one is function settings. Now here, what I normally do is I'll change it from the triggered function from what it normally is to like F13, and I will just make F13 like the radiator fans or something, or a compressor or something like that. So that triggered function means that every now and then it'll just activate after so many seconds. Here's the big page function map for function mapping, and this is when you do program a locomotive. This one can take quite a while, but we'll look at the how I have mine set up. F0 is for the front headlight, and I do not have these directional. These are set up where they ignore the direction. That way I can control it just like the prototype. It doesn't matter if the locomotive is going in reverse. I can have the front headlight on, and the same way with the rear headlight, where I moved it down to F10. F1 is the bell. I kept it that way. F2 is the horn. I kept it that way. No changes there. F3 is where I put the front headlight dimmer, because I want to be able to dim the headlight. I don't want it on bright all the time. And F4 is where I have the front ditch lights. So you see that auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2 for those ditch lights. F5, I have a drive hold, and that's where you disable the brake sound and drive hold. F6 is this independent brake, and you'll see I have all three brakes here: brake 1, brake 2, and brake 3. There's that independent brake. And I'm not sure what happens here, but I think that since I have these three, as they progress and get harder, as you move the arc of the brake handle on the proto throttle, it catches all three of these brakes. And for me, I don't know, it just gives me the best results. You probably could just get away with one, but I like it this way, so I'm sticking to it. F7 is my dynamic brake, and I do not, in the settings, they'll put a brake here to when you activate the dynamic brake, it starts slowing it down. I just want the sound of the dynamic brake. I can control the speed using drive hold and things of that nature to make it seem like the unit is slowing down there. F8 is where my sound is on and off. There's some ground lights on this particular unit that are in auxiliary 3. And you'll see a whole bunch of other things. That I actually have flange squeal for when it's moving, although it's turned down pretty good bit. F9 is the coupler sound. Like I said again, F10 is the rear headlight. That would be bright. F11 is the rear headlight dimmer. Now, have this unit had rear ditch lights, I'd put it on F12. But in this case, since it's not equipped with rear ditch lights, I have the handbrake wheel. So if I turn my proto throttle to bright with ditch lights on the rear, it'll activate the handbrake. And then again, F13, here I have a radiator fan, and that's where I have that program for that random feature. All right, so scrolling down some more, here are the motor settings that I use for this particular unit. Now, they're going to vary, because even though I've got two Kato SD40-2s and they're not the same, they may be close, but they're not the same. And this is where you have to use some kind of ability to be able to check the speed, some kind of speedometer. I have an older Accutrack 2 speedometer that I will use to program the locomotives. And here you can see the first thing you need to do is set up your minimum and maximum speed. Since I want my units to max out at 18 scale miles an hour, I don't want them to go any faster. That's where I come up with this 56 number. It took me a minute to figure that out, but once I figured out the maximum speed was equal to 56 to get that 18, I plug that in. Then I can make this speed curve, and this is for each speed step. So, for example, this is well, speed step 1 will always be 1, and here's speed step 2, 24. Speed step 3, 45. And I keep doing that because I'm wanting to try to achieve a certain speed. And normally with the proto throttle, like for example, speed step 2 might be notch number 1, and speed step 4 might be notch 2. And so I'm trying to hit certain speeds on each one of these notches. And so that's why you see this speed curve go from, for example, speed step 6 at 91 to speed step on speed step 7 be value of 115. So it jumped up there. And you'll see that it's not always just a linear straight line with equal settings, equal distance between each setting. You really have to play around with it. And this by far takes the longest amount of time, but if you get it set up right, you can really have a truly speed matched consist. It doesn't matter what locomotive I put with what locomotive, they'll all run the same with the same. I can have this Kato consisted with an Athearn and a scale trains unit, and I can get the same results because I played around with this speed curve, and you can see how it's changed. Now I don't use all 28 speed steps because I can reach once I get up here to around speed step 14, I'm already at notch number 7 on my proto throttle, and it only goes to notch 8, so I'm going to hit the speed step 16 is going to give me notch 8, the speed. So these speed steps don't even matter, so they're all the same. So I'm going to hit the maximum 255 by the time I reach speed step number 16. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, leave a comment below. I'll try to answer it the best I can. All right, for sound settings, you have, this is where you adjust the master volume and the bass and the treble. So on this particular unit, it has scale sound system speakers, really good bass on here. I got the master volume set at 64. The bass I have at 7.5 decibels, and also the treble at 7.5 decibels. And this unit sounds amazing. For sound slot settings, this is where we're going to adjust that bell volume. Here you see I've got that you can adjust the individual sound volumes for each thing. Like for example, the engine, the low idle 645 engine that's inside of it. Here's the horn. I always max the horn out at 255 because that is by far the loudest thing on a locomotive, and you can hear horns from a great distance for they're designed that way. Now bell here, I've got it at 25%, which is way, way, way too low. Let's move this up to at least 50%, which would be 64. Maybe we want to even bring it up more than that, but for right now, let's go with 50%. We'll leave everything else the same. And other than that, I think we should be good to go. We'll go up here to this right here, and this is where if you're just going to make changes, you're not uploading a new sound file. Right here is where we're just going to update the changes. So I'll hit this button, and we're going to overwrite the defaults with the current values, and it's going to write the new value on the decoder. Now what it's doing here is updating the firmware that is on that decoder. So this may take us a couple of minutes. We'll pause the video here. One more thing I forgot to mention is on the driving characteristics tab, underneath acceleration and deceleration, you can go down here, and this is where you can program the amount of time you want in the power pack. So right now it's set at 4.1 seconds. I'm going to bump that up to 5 seconds. So I'm going to change that to 153. Again, I go up here to this particular write decoder settings. I'm going to overwrite with it, and this shouldn't take but just a second. All right. So everything is updated, including my new bell volume. I'll go up to driver's cab. This is how we can check it. Hit go. F8 should turn it on. Now we can hit F1 to activate that bell. Yeah, that's a lot better. We can definitely hear that. Here's the horn. I love that horn on there. It's since they added the bass and the treble right here, it really does give that reverb effect with that horn. Good Leslie S3 horn. Now I'm going to save to new current settings on here, so I can keep track of what all these changes I've made. So I'm going to save this as 3016, and we're good to go. One more thing I want to do before we put it back on the layout is take this time to clean the wheels. Use this ACT 6006 track and rail cleaner. And normally with my locomotives, what I do is I will take them out of service. I'll run them for 3 months and take them out of service to reflect their FRA dates. Their out of service dates with FRA. And it's during this time that I can clean these wheels. I need to make any changes like what I'm doing to the decoder. I can take an opportunity to get these wheels clean. I can show you just about that current keeper, what's happening. Look. And remember, I got it for 5 seconds. The thing is still going. So we know it's working good. We'll do the back part on there here now. All right, I got them back on the layout. I also took the time to clean the wheels and update the programming on the 3015, which is that rear locomotive there. And I built a new consist where I have my SD45, my number 361 in the middle. So let's see how it sounds going back into the shop. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this latest video on the Seaboard Central. If you did, be sure to give it a like, and if you're not already a subscriber, I'd invite you to join. Next week, I'm going to be doing a really cool video on cool details you can add to your layout. So be sure to tune in for that. Until next time, I'm Tim Garland. Thanks for watching the Seaboard Central. And happy model railroading, everyone.